In this next part, we want to apply our understanding of the Solo taxonomy and make links to the Singapore teaching practice. Here, we are going to see how Solo can help us design questions that can deepen understanding. These are the 24 teaching areas of the Singapore teaching practice. They're divided into 4 domains, starting with building a positive classroom culture, lesson preparation, lesson enactment, and assessment and feedback. Can you think about how Solo can support one or more of these teaching areas? I would like to suggest that Solo can help us develop a more principled approach in determining lesson objectives. The principle of constructive alignment suggests that good lesson design begins with establishing lesson objectives or intended learning outcomes. So what do we want students to be able to learn in order to demonstrate understanding and good performance? Thereafter, learning activities as well as assessment activities are designed to help them achieve the intended learning outcomes. So the idea of alignment has to do with both teaching and assessment needing to be aligned to the intended learning outcomes. As for the constructive aspect, it refers to the idea that students themselves must construct meaning through relevant activities. The idea of constructive alignment was conceptualized by John Biggs based on earlier work by Ralph Taylor. And this quotation here reminds us of the constructivist underpinnings of these ideas. Here, learning takes place through the active behavior of the student. It is what he does that he learns and not what the teacher does. It reminds us of the importance of student engagement and self-regulation. Earlier, we have seen how these sample verbs in the Solo taxonomy are helpful in crafting standards in a rubric. I would like to suggest that they are also useful for forming intended learning outcomes and success criteria. This is an example of a learning intention and success criteria in the context of primary English. When success criteria is framed along Solo levels, what it enables students to do is to know where they stand in terms of their understanding and what they need to do to advance to a higher level of understanding. Other than applying Solo in determining lesson objectives and success criteria, I'd like to suggest that Solo levels could also be helpful in helping us select and sequence content or progression of learning in a lesson design. So what we are concerned at this stage in the constructive alignment of lesson design is in thinking about what learning activities might be helpful in helping students reach their intended learning outcome. Here we have an example of a PE rubric that assesses the construct of students' ability to perform a short pass in a game of soccer. I invite you to look at these 5 levels of understanding and performance and consider how it can be useful in designing differentiated lessons for students according to where they are in terms of their ability to make a short pass. For example, for students who can already kick the ball in one direction to a partner, may be asked to work on kicking the ball in multiple directions. Whereas students who can already pass the ball with direction and accuracy may be put into a real gameplay situation. Other than applying Solo to determine lesson objectives, to select and sequence content, I'd like to suggest that Solo ideas are also helpful in planning key questions in lesson preparation. One of the ways Solo can be used is in framing a hierarchy of questions or outcomes in terms of different levels of complexity. The complexity of the questions can be evaluated in terms of their expected outcomes or answers. At the unistructural level, only one relevant aspect of the presented evidence is needed. At the multistructural level, it usually requires two or more discrete and separate pieces of related information. In this case, to compare which planet is warmer, Venus or Mars. At the relational level, the question requires two or more pieces of information that are directly related or leads to an integrated understanding of the information. And finally, at the extended abstract level, it requires an abstract general principle or hypothesis that requires students to go beyond the given information. Applying Solo in planning key questions enable us to build a hierarchy of questions of increasing levels of complexity. The challenge is for us to not allow our questions to remain only at the unistructural and multistructural levels, but also to ask questions that require relational and extended abstract thinking and understanding. At this point, I invite you to apply what you have learned in redesigning questions to deepen students' learning. Begin by looking at the unit of work you are currently teaching. You may look at existing questions you already have or start from scratch. Using solo levels, think of a series of questions that will help students move from unistructural, multistructural, relational, and finally to extended abstract understanding. Post your ideas on Blackboard discussion board and say how it may or may not address an assessment challenge or issue that's of concern to you.